Weather.
Hey, Spencer.
Hey, Caleb.
Sorry, I'm jacking my mic
Yeah.
around my mouth. I'm getting it real close to my mouth.
It needs to be in your mouth.
That reminds me of that fucking video of I'm sure I sent it to you. Orlando, is it Orlando Brown, the guy that was on Disney Channel back in the days on That's So Raven, I think.
Yeah.
I always make mistaken.
When he sits up and he grabs
I always mistake him for Orlando Jones from the 90s. From the Replacements and 7-Up guy and all that shit. No, Orlando Brown, who's certified crazy, or at least plays crazy on interviews and shit. There was that video. I don't even know what the show was. It's like maybe a streaming show or something. He went on some guy's show, and he actually made the guy break character, which apparently never happens. And Ray J was there for some reason, too, sitting on the side with sunglasses. Orlando Jones walks in, and they ask him some question. Whatever it was, Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown, I think, compared himself to Michael Jackson, was it?
Yeah.
Like saying he was as good as Michael Jackson or something. And they were just like, what the fuck? No, you're not. And then he just immediately fillets the overhead mic, like puts the whole thing in his mouth. And the other two dudes were just like, what the fuck? Like Ray J just took off his glasses and shook his head. It was very humorous. So look that video up, folks. It's much funnier if you watch it.
Then Caleb telling you about it.
Yeah, me doing a very poor job in making Orlando Jones seem like he fillets microphones, and he does not. As far as I know.
Yeah, that we know of.
I don't even know if he's still famous and or alive. I'm sure he is. Alive. Not so much famous, probably. Some news. Because I don't think I mentioned this, and if I had, I'm going to mention it again. I was in issue 3 of Peasant Magazine. That's a reprint of my story that's in Halloween Remains on Dying Island. You could read that for free on their website. Just look up Peasant Magazine. You'll find it. Or you could buy the physical magazine. It's like $8 on Amazon. The other news, which I don't think I necessarily announced the book coming out, because I haven't made a post about getting the book. Wicked Shadow Press, Who Let the Gods Out? Not dogs. Who Let the Gods Out is a 2-volume anthology. I am in the Divine Wrath anthology, and that is also a reprint. That is my Bog Hag story that was featured in Horoscope Volume 4, which had the unfortunate omission of the second half of the story in the very first print run, which is the one most people got and read. So I felt I didn't get a fair shake on my story that go around, so I submitted it to Wicked Shadow, who doesn't even really take reprints, but they still enjoyed it enough to reprint it, and I think they did a good job. It looks cool. There's some accompanying art and all that fun stuff. So check that out. My only gripe with them is they only print through Lulu.
Yeah,
because it's a publisher based in India, so they somehow got banished on Amazon they got caught up in one of the algorithm things, like that catches like, oh, you're doing copyright or something. I think that's happened to quite a few people. And Dan Noakes, who was on the podcast, lost his whole bibliography on Amazon because one of his book titles either sounded similar to something else, or maybe it was blasphemous because it was a zombie book, and I think it's called like Adam and Eve something or other. And they booted his whole catalog and just would not reinstate him for no reason.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
So I think that's the same thing that happened in the Wicked Shadow Press. Just one of those things, like once you get booted, they do not give a fuck if you're a small fries guy. They just will boot you and they don't care about correcting it. What else do I got? I got 4 other things coming out. I think I can announce 2 of them, Spencer.
Do them all. Break the NDAs.
Woo! Not inside any NDAs. I can announce, which I think I might have in the past, that Hellbound Books Splatterpunk Volume 2 Gay Werewolf Story from Caleb. I think that comes out in a month or 2. I think we did a whole episode on the editing shit. So I got the edits for that and stuff like a month ago. So that should be out. They told me I can announce that. Dark Homes Publishing also announced the Dark Descent Anthology Collection. I am in that. That's a flash fiction story, so 1 or 2 pages maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that. Mine was actually the featured story on their site version, which you had to sign in to read them. Like you had to be a subscription member. But my story was a featured story that you could read, because I told her, I was like, hey, you don't even have to give me money for this flash fiction. Just like do what you want with it. And she put it on their publishing thing, and I don't know. So that was up there for a little bit as the featured story. So my story, what is the name of that? Desolation of the Wendigo.
Yeah.
It's my climate change Wendigo story. It's about a Wendigo who is in the mountains of such and such place. And due to climate change, let's just say a big forest fire eviscerates the whole mountain. And now the Wendigo can't feast because there's nothing to eat. There's no people to lure into the mountains because it's all burnt down. And then the Wendigo is a spirit roaming stuck in the desolation of the mountain. I think it was a cool take on the whole Wendigo lore.
That's funny that you get that, and like I have an old Wendigo story that I was working on and got sidetracked with it and was talking about going back to it.
Yeah, that is kind of unique. The two other bits of news, the one I'm just not announcing because, which is funny because I'm actually going to do a reading later on in the episode from that story. So maybe I can't, fuck it, I'll just announce it. Starlight Pulp, issue 6. I don't like to announce things ahead of time sometimes just in case like something happens and it doesn't come out. But I know this is coming out because he's fucking good review. Yeah. So Starlight Pulp review, my story, Giant Steps, the Kowalski boxing story we talked about, which we had many names or many occupations for this Kowalski fellow, but I made him a boxer in this one. So that's coming out, I think they said late spring, early summer. So I'm really excited about that. That was the big one. That was out of 2 stories this year. That was one of the big ones I really wanted to get published. I wrote it specifically for the for Starlight Pulp and had no plans on doing anything else with it. So if they didn't take it, I was shit out of luck. But that was a fun story to write, and I'm glad that that's coming out. What is the other one? It is a poem. It's a poetry. So
it's a poem.
I'm in a poetry anthology again, and that's not. I just get those to collect the books, put on my shelf. Try to fatten up that shelf, the Caleb shelf.
Yeah.
So that I got 4 things as of now coming out, and I'm still working on stuff. So that is it. Spencer still hasn't heard back, but
and it hasn't been the time yet to hear back either, too. Because like I said, I think that the submissions is open until the end of the month.
Oh, so usually it's like a month after the submission.
Yeah, so there's still
that's the worst fucking part is the waiting. So hopefully you'll get that acceptance, and then we can celebrate with some cocktails.
Yes.
Yeah. All up in your mouth. So today we have a real episode, right?
Yeah. Maybe. We'll try our best.
We are going to be discussing 31 of the most beautiful and profound passages. That's a long title. I just looked up best prose in fiction, like lines of prose, and it came up. This is one of the best articles I can find on the matter. So I will be reading some of the best lines in literature, and we will be reading some of our lines as a countermeasure to see how they stack up against the best of the best. So
not
that
good.
Probably be an ego, not a boost, the opposite. A
dampener,
dampener, stab,
stomper,
ruiner, imposter syndrome sets in quickly.
Inflator.
Deflator. Yeah, inflate is making bigger.
Yeah. Which
would be the boosting. Anyway, we'll check you out in a few minutes. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me, as always, Spencer, the Oxnard Ovary Opener Church.
Aw. That's like the second thing you've done with like ovaries and like the...
I know, but I couldn't think of anything else you're opening. Spencer suggested off air that he be from Oxnard, which I thought was a mythological. I didn't think that was real. I looked it up, city in California, Oxnard, which is not where, England maybe, I would think, but not,
some European place.
Also, I think how long have we been doing this podcast? 5, 6, 10 years, fucking something.
11.
11 years, and I've never said Caleb James K. That's the host.
Never.
Always just Caleb James. So if people go to just look up my work just using Caleb James,
might not be showing up.
I think they find a popular YouTuber or something or shit streamer or something of the same name. There's a lot of Caleb James out there, but not so many with the K, which I told you a couple days ago. I am in the algorithm now.
Yes.
If you look up Caleb James K, at least on my phone, it comes up with my occupation. I'm the host of this fine podcast, and that's, I don't know, some other thing. Writer, and I think something about an entrepreneur. I don't think that's accurate. Said I invented the fleshlight. I did not. I've tried, but I did not invent. A lot of failures. Lots of failures. What are we doing?
A lot of room couches.
My face got a little fatter. I could look like J.D. Vance probably. I'll cosplay him.
Oh god, you can't get the like dead darkness eyes though.
That's sunken like his deep recesses and his. Yeah, I don't like looking at that guy. I don't like looking at anybody in that administration. Like Trump is hideous. Which I always thought was funny is like he always was getting. The Republicans love that he made fun of other people's appearance, like Rosie O'Donnell and shit. Like, look at you, you fat fucking lumpy hunk of shit.
Got the neck gizzard.
You look like a fucking somebody dumped Cheetos in a used diaper. You fucking gross goblin man.
And then we threw some fucking pubes from the Bonds and Noble bathroom on top of it.
Fucking some blonde fucking albino pubes on top of his head. Fucking gross asshole. Like I never understood that. Politics aside, just the motherfucker's appearance. Like you can't make fun of the way other people look when you look like that. You dye yourself orange, you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Looks like a fucking aged out porn star's asshole. Like it's fucking all bloated and fucking discolored
and worn out.
And he got the vacant dementia stare and he just rambles nonsense. What a fucking cunt. What a fat fucking cunt. He has old cunt lips.
Are you talking about the ones on his face or the ones up above his necktie?
Oh, that fucking gobbler he got. Fucking yuck. Fucking yuck. He got a vagina on his neck. So today we're talking about... This is brought to you by our best friends at Thought Catalog. Go to Thought Catalog and tell them DPW sent you.
So you catalog your thoughts.
ThoughtCatalog.com. 31 of the most beautiful and profound passages in literature you'll want to read over and over again. And we talked about Trump's neck vagina to open that up.
Yeah.
Classy. Classy Freddie Blassie. So this is going to be basically just me reading some lines, and then we're going to also read some of our lines from, I just did some of my recent stories, and I think you did your most famous Pulitzer, you know what, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm just living on the edge. Living on the edge, Spencer. Number one on this list. I'm not going to ask you to guess because you won't guess these. No. I'm just going to actually read the titles too because the titles are after the quotes.
Okay.
But I'm going to read the titles first. That way it's not like, can you guess what that is? And we're here for 45 minutes.
Right, yeah.
Well, you go, is that 1984? No. Is that what 1984?
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot of these I don't know. I wouldn't even know. Couldn't even guess.
Maybe not. Perhaps not. So this first one is Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, which I've been urging you to read, and I was actually going to suggest that I do the Stephen King swap where I read Pet Sematary and you read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
That's before we got the Confederacy of Dunces.
Yeah.
And so,
that can maybe be a little bit later in the year or something.
You said I had to read Ulysses for some reason. Just dumb fucking shit like that. Atticus said to Jem one day, I'd rather you shot at tin cans in the backyard, but I know you'll go after birds. Shoot all the blue jays you want, if you can hit them. But remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. That was the only time I ever heard Atticus say it was a sin to do something, and I asked Miss Maudie about it. Your father's right, she said. Mockingbirds don't do one thing except make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens, don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. So what do you feel about that? Do you think that's do you think that is a beautiful line of profound? It's all right.
Yeah, it's good, and it's
good for the title.
It's good for the title, and it's a good. I'm assuming that's probably pretty early on in the thing, so it's kind of
and it goes
set up for the stuff that happens in that.
And obviously, it goes with the whole message of the book. I'm assuming this isn't in order. It's just it says one that I wouldn't say that could be the best.
No,
that can't be the best. Maybe because there was another list I did not pick because I didn't feel like reading it, but it was something or other top most beautiful poem prose or something like that. And I didn't want a bunch of Cormac McCarthy right here where I'm fucking stumbling over my words for an hour. So 2. This is Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. I've not read this yet.
No.
Isn't this a big one? Isn't The Bell Jar a big one?
Probably.
There's like a handful in the classic lit group they always talk about that are just big girthy books. I'm like, I don't want to fucking read any of those.
Oh, because you don't read big girthy classic books?
Yeah, but they're not as you know what? Shut up. Just shut up. Some of them may be boring to you know what I'm talking about. I took a deep breath and listened to the old brag of my heart. I am. I don't know. Is that beautiful?
Yeah. Oh, that's the whole thing?
That's it.
Maybe
I have to read The Bell Jar to get the
maybe,
nuance
yeah.
of that one. Here's another big one. Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time. This is not in French, so I don't know what the translation is on this. That's one thing I don't like about these lists when it's translated works. They never mention the translator. That changes it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mention the translator, how do I know which version of this prose I'm reading? We believe that we can change the things around us in accordance with our desires. We believe it because otherwise we can see no favorable outcome. We do not think of the outcome which generally comes to pass and is also okay, I'm not reading all that. Take it off the list. Take it off the list.
That's a long line.
Maybe I'll read some of the shorter one. I'm going to have to skip through some of these. I ain't fucking... This one, you might appreciate. Kurt Vonnegut's God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater.
Okay.
Hello, babies. I did the Val Venus, but except for ladies, I did babies. Hello, babies. Welcome to Earth. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. It's round and wet and crowded. On the outside, babies, you've got 100 years here. There's only one rule that I know of, babies. God damn it, you've got to be kind. I feel like the thought catalog didn't put a lot of thought into the profound part of these beautiful things of prose. Or maybe they put too much emphasis on the profound and not so much the beautiful prose.
Right.
I think that's more accurate because none of this language is impressing me so much. These are just kind of basic thoughts told in maybe a cool way. But we're only on number 6. This is Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. Why, sometimes I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. I always like that line. Number 7, Oscar Wilde's Lady Windermere's Fan. I read that. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. That's also one of my favorite lines. That's a good line. That's a good fucking line. That is a good fucking line. Frank Hubert's Dune. This is, when I read it, you'll know. This is the epitome of Dune. This is the, I forget what they call it. Not the spices. The famous fear quote that everybody gets tattooed and shit.
Yeah.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. That's one of those quotes that like people make their whole lives about, or maybe even pseudo-religious aspects of their lives are based on that fucking quote.
And I always wonder whenever something like that like gets repurposed for things, like, you know, like I wonder how the author feels like that. Like whenever, you know, you get a real aggro guy who would like, you know, like you said, would like have that tattooed on his back or something, be like, I wasn't talking about you, asshole. You
fucking dick. I wasn't talking about you. Also, usually it's only the first line that I feel a lot of people actually quote. Like most quotes, they don't go through the whole thing. Is it a mantra? I forget what they fucking call that. There's a word I'm not thinking of. Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Close up of Elizabeth Moss's. Oh, come on! In the fucking article, they close up on her face. Why is the quote on her forehead? They put the fucking quote on her forehead, a picture of her face on her forehead. Oh.
It's just like one of those things where you put like a mirror in front of a mirror and it just goes on forever.
I don't want to see her face no more. Sorry, I scared the dog with that. He's like, all right, you guys are acting up.
He's like, I'm going to go lay on the couch.
So this is from The Handmaid's Tale. No light tea bastardus carborundum. Don't let the bastards grind you down. Guess that was Latin. Carborundum. Don't let the bastards grind you down. Yeah, that's a sentiment. I didn't know that came from that, but I've heard that before. Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
All right.
It's number 10. Just remember that the things you put into your head are there forever, he said. You might want to think about that. You forget some things, don't you? Yes. You forget what you want to remember and you remember what you want to forget. That is a good line because often people, I know I do, almost obsess sometimes about things that they don't want to remember, but the things that, you know, actually happen to us that we would like to remember often dissipate over time.
Get lost in time.
Yeah. This one I have not heard of. Jodi Picoult, Handle with Care. You can tell yourself that you would be willing to lose everything you have in order to get something you want, but it's a catch-22. All of those things you're willing to lose are what make you recognizable. Lose them, and you've lost yourself. This one I have not read, but it's on my list. I read Dharma Bums, and I actually like that, but I have not read On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Oh, yeah.
I always feel if I read On the Road, I'm going to get real mad because America isn't as glorious as it once was.
Yeah.
By a long shot. And then I also want to travel the world, or the country, I guess, on a road
I could
trip.
see, well, you know, you got a little bit of a forest behind in your backyard. I could just see you after you get done reading, just running, just throwing your clothes off, running into the come back, Caleb.
And much like Jack Kerouac, just drink myself into oblivion. The only people for me are the mad ones, the ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved. Desirous of everything at the same time, the ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles, exploding like spiders across the stars. That kind of reminds me of one on here that I don't know if it's on here, but it better be, is the one from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple lines in there that, like the fucking mutant line needs to be in there, and then the fucking The line about riding the wave.
Oh yeah,
like those two were some of my favorite lines in all of fiction. So if neither one of those are on here, this list is bunk. It's bunk. 13. This is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
there you go.
I've been meaning to read him, but I think he has some long ass books. Like 100 Years of Solitude, I want to read because apparently that show that finally came out was really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, that motherfucking book. It's big.
It's a big boy.
It spans 100 years of people's lives, and they all have like the same names. He allowed himself to be swayed by his conviction that human beings are not born once and for all on the day their mothers give birth to them, but that life obliges them over and over again to give birth to themselves. I don't know what the fuck that means.
Yeah.
I ain't birthing myself. Bunk. 14. Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho.
Oh.
There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there. I always love that line.
Yeah.
I haven't read that yet, but I've heard, that might even been in the movie, but just the fact that it so perfectly encapsulates a psycho.
Yeah. Or
Like,
just even somebody who is like, has that, like a psychopath, even like not like the murderous kind, but just like those kinds of like, just like cold kind of, distant, people.
Yeah. This next one's three paragraphs long, and I immediately was like, I'm not reading that. But it is from one of my favorite Murakami books, Haruki Murakami, Kafka on the Shore.
Okay.
So I will read this and bore everybody. Sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the sandstorm chases you. You turn again, but the storm adjusts. Over and over, you play this out like some ominous dance with death just before dawn. Why? Because this storm isn't something that blew in from far away, something that has nothing to do with you. This storm is you, something inside of you. So all you can do is give in to it, step right inside the storm, closing your eyes and plugging up your ears so the sand doesn't get in, and walk through it step by step. There's no sun there, no moon, no direction, no sense of time, just fine white sand swirling up into the sky like pulverized bones. That's the kind of sandstorm you need to imagine. And you really will have to make it through that violent, metaphysical, symbolic storm. No matter how metaphysical or symbolic it might be, make no mistake about it. It will cut through flesh like 1,000 razor blades. People will bleed there, and you will bleed too. Hot, red blood. You'll catch that blood in your hands. You'll own blood and the blood of others. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm's all about. And that last line about walking into the storm and coming out different, that is the one that's always quoted from here. So that's the full version, the longer version. That is one of my favorite favorite Murakami books, like I said, and I believe that is the J. Rubin translation. I can just tell because I read it. That might actually be the only translation. I think it's J. Rubin. I'm assuming he's the one who did the Kafka on the Shore. But that, Q.
Yeah.
Q.
Would you put that up there? Like, like if Caleb, you make a list of top lines.
If I made this list, I probably wouldn't pick almost none of these because I would have been going, because when I looked this up, my idea was like beautiful prose.
Right.
I wasn't thinking of the messaging necessarily.
Right.
And maybe that's where I come in as my version of being a writer is I always look at prose first. So like Cormac McCarthy, I would either had something about the fire lines from The Road or probably some of the passages from Suchi or maybe even Blood Meridian. Some of those were really good when we were reading them. It's just like they were too much.
Right.
But I don't think that just like these plain, like this one was okay, but like it's still the language is very plain. Like I would have Dickens opening from Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of time. Maybe even Call Me Ishmael, some of the lines from Moby Dick. There's like a lot of really good lines that are also poetic and have a good message or relate to the title and or theme. Like To Kill a Mockingbird, I would have left. Not number one, but I would have left that one. Anyway, this is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And you know what? Some of these lines are actually really good, by the way. A heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others. But like the line, the fear killer line from Dune, I would have kept that. And then the Oscar Wilde looking up from the gutter.
Yeah.
The star, yeah. Maybe I wouldn't have changed so many of these. The Proust one, I can't. I don't think I have Swan's Way. I don't think I could read Proust. It's too much. It's like fucking 17 volumes of that book.
Ooh.
17. This is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. Never heard of him.
Big name.
Sometimes I can hear my bones straining under the weight of all the lives I'm not living. Ooh, That's a good one. That's a good way to say that. I like that. Makes me sad. I wasn't going to read this one, but this is Stephen King, Different Seasons.
Oh, wow.
It's another big one. The most, and again, maybe Murakami and Stephen King, like I always say, Murakami's kind of the Stephen King of Japan. I say that for one is they use a lot of words to say things sometimes.
I say, does it say what book from Different Seasons? Because Different Seasons is 4 different stories.
I know. Maybe we'll ascertain that by reading it. Does not say though. The most important things are the hardest to say. They are the things you get ashamed of because words diminish them. Words shrink things that seem limitless when they were in your head to no more than living size when they're brought out. But it's more than that, isn't it? The most important things lie too close to wherever your secret heart is buried, like landmarks to a treasure your enemies would love to steal away. And you may make revelations that cost you dearly only to have people look at you in a funny way, not understanding what you've said at all, or why you thought it was so important that you almost cried while you were saying it. That's the worst, I think. When the secret stays locked within, not for want of a teller, but for want of an understanding ear. I don't know what that's from.
No.
Maybe he did an introduction or something.
Maybe.
And it's actually just from the Different Seasons. Yeah, what story would that have been from?
Maybe Shawshank?
I don't remember.
I would think like Shawshank or the body, maybe. Because I don't think that would be an apt pupil or the breathing method. Because those are both more like kind of weirder. Like
I would say that had to be the body if that's in one of the stories. I wish I would say. Anyway, gotta go on. Next up, The Chronology of Water by Lydia Yuknovich. Like that name, Yuknovich. Yuck. Or it could be Yuk. Y-U-K. I don't have any problem understanding why people flunk out of college or quit their jobs or cheat on each other or break the law or spray paint walls. A little bit outside of things is where some people feel each other. We do it to replace the frame of family. We do it to erase and remake our origins in their own images. To say I too was here. Fuck you. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I mean, this is kind of weird because it's supposed to be like the best written like line.
Yeah, of all literature. This is not reading to me just the best. Like some of these are hard to read. So
and then it's like they're so long. Like it's not like
Yeah.
Like you said, like the Murakami was like 3 paragraphs. Like that's a little bit more than a line.
Yeah. Exactly. So okay, Jeanette Walls, The Glass Castle. I'm not reading this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a fucking book.
Yeah. It's like a whole page. Like it might be written well, but like that's kind of defeating the purpose of the.
Yeah, there's dialogue and everything. That's too much. This one I'll read because it's actually goes in. It's the opening of Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, whatever you want to say. Gross book apparently, but I always thought the opening of this was it was the most beautiful prose for a fucking very creepy.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't about a little kid, maybe this would be beautiful.
Right.
Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins. That's already gross when you know the context. My sin, my soul, Lolita. The tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lolita. It's hard to beat the fucking alliteration there.
Yeah.
The T's. She was low, playing low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. I'm not reading anymore. This is gross. But you get it.
You're right.
It's good language.
Yeah.
But goddamn.
It's gross.
You know the book has to be well written when people are still reading it and it's that subject matter. About a man who's in love with a kid. Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon. That is far too long for me to read. Where are we on? 23. Joan Didion, Slouching Towards Bethlehem. That I'm not going to read because it's a fucking... Well, it's a big paragraph, but it's like there's dots before it, ellipses before it, which means it's it's the end of another fucking paragraph. Like, it's not the whole thing. It's like weird. Number 24, Janet Fitch's White Oleander. I'm not reading that. Might not read any more of these. Yeah, there's a couple short ones. John Green, Looking for Alaska. It has the word fuck, so I'm gonna read it. Okay. I wanted so badly to lie down next to her on the couch, to wrap my arms around her and sleep. Not fuck, like in those movies. Not even have sex. Just sleep together in the most innocent sense of the phrase. But I lacked the courage, and she had a boyfriend, and I was gawky, and she was gorgeous, and I was hopelessly boring, and she was endlessly fascinating. So I walked back to my room and collapsed on the bottom bunk, thinking that if people were rain, I was drizzle, and she was hurricane. You know, I just think it's funny that he mentions he goes into a bunk, and I kept saying the word bunk to disparage some of these fucking things. So, no, this one, Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But I tried, didn't I? God damn it, at least I did that. I always love that fucking line because, like, that's all you can really ask out of life is you tried. You can fail, but as long as you try. And I remember that scene in the movie, like Jack Nicholson, like, he was the only one that tried. Everyone else just gave up, essentially. Charles Bukowski's Factotum. That's a long one. I'm not going to read that. Richard Brodigan, Sombrero Fallout. That's another long one. Marcus Suzak, The Book Thief. Usually we walk around constantly believing ourselves. I'm okay, we say. I'm all right. But sometimes the truth arrives on you and you can't keep... I'm thinking of British people coming. Yeah. Sometimes I'm arriving. But sometimes the truth arrives on you and you can't get it off. That's when you realize that sometimes it isn't even an answer, it's a question. Even now, I wonder how much of my life is convinced. How do people, like, just love coming in the shower? Because it gets all glumpy. Once the water hits it, then you try to soap it off. Yeah, it's bad. Don't do that. Pablo Neruda's 100 Love Sonnets. I love you without knowing how or when or from where. I love you simply without problems or pride. I love you in this way because I do not know any other way of loving but this, in which there is no I or you, so intimate that your hand upon my chest is my hand, so intimate that when I fall asleep, your eyes close. I wish they would have had some of the lines from, because they're probably not going to. Oh, what the fuck was it? I lost it. Did I lose it? I think I lost it.
Always losing it.
Not 120 Days of Sodom. Not lines from that. Oh, the fucking blue lines from the one that Max, why am I forgetting everybody's name? The Thomas Wolfe book.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Fuck it. 31. It does. What is this from? Oh, Jesus.
I thought there was only 30. How many?
31. Araya Mountain Dreamer, The Invitation. That's her name, Araya Mountain Dreamer. I'm not reading that. That's 10 fucking paragraphs. Why do they do this? Who came up with this list? Bunk.
It's
bunk. All right, so we're going to read some of ours, Spencer.
Yay.
Hold on. Before we do that, I want to read those Fear and Loathing quotes. I'm sure Goodreads will have them. Yeah, buddy. Because that has two of my favorite fiction quotes of all time. And Goodreads is acting like an asshole. There's a lot more. It's just two that really like it. Actually, there's three, because too weird to live, too rare to die.
Oh, yeah.
That might have actually been with the mutant, wasn't it? The mutant line?
Can't find them.
I don't know. They got a bunch of shit. It said 5 quotes, and there's 38.
Oh, well, another great.
Here it is. The full quote. There he goes, one of God's own prototypes, a high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production. Too weird to live and too rare to die. One of my favorite lines. Where is... That's a book I wouldn't mind reading again.
Yeah.
I can't find the one about the waves, but whatever. So let's read some of ours and we can end this episode. So this first one is from me, Caleb. This is
K. James.
Caleb Jamal Kowalski. No?
I mean, if you want to.
Jameson? Maybe I should make it Jameson. You keep changing it. This is from a story I'm currently working on. This is the opening, though it's only the first draft. But I do think I like the opening. A smoke-grayed cataract haze clouded the blue sky. Acrid plumes of ash and mercy rose from the rubble. The school was no more, only ash. But the children had managed to escape the destruction. That was the mercy, the only mercy gifted to them in their short lives. The second missile to sing from the heavens was not so kind. Flesh joined the rubble to sweeten its flames. War had returned to the small town, but for those who'd bloodied their hands the previous year, it had never left. About a war.
A war.
School gets blowed up.
Boom.
Yeah. That's when I stopped writing because it was too damn sad. It's about a brother and his disabled sister escaping some war stuff, and they end up in the woods of Eastern European. I don't name. It's not. It's alluded to be in the Russian, Poland, Ukrainian area, Belarus, any of those areas. There's lots of wars. I don't have a date or anything set. But I remember watching Grave of the Fireflies. And I was like, I need to write a war story like that and, get into a magazine. But then I started writing and I'm like, God damn it.
I want to hurt myself.
Yeah, so I had to take a break from that. But I did go back to it because when I reread the opening, I was like, oh, I actually like that. So let me read one of yours, Spencer. Did you send me one or two?
I sent you one and then you looked up the other one.
Okay. So this is from, do you have a title for this story? This is one you're working on, right?
No, I still need a title for it.
So this was just a line because I initially told you just find one of your lines you like.
Right.
As before we found out their paragraphs.
Right.
Body parts floated in the low gravity, leaving crimson chemtrails behind.
Yeah.
I like that line. Chemtrails. So just, I think, a blood mist.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Very nice. Did I not take a picture? Maybe I did. Yeah, I did. Did I? Yeah, I did. I did. I got one for you. Next up is... this is from my Hear the Peddler Sing story that is currently on the market, hoping for a buyer.
Yes.
So this one is completed. This is not a draft. I have 2 lines from this. One's a bigger one. This is just a paragraph. But I have 2 from here I particularly liked. I read some of it on here before, I think, maybe about like the head full of stump water.
Yeah, I think you have talked about it.
Anyway, a sideways gust shifted the falling snow, revealing a small church ahead of them. Its gray spire stretched to the night sky, and with the tempestuous weather, the church's faded red door bled through the white squall like a hemorrhaging wound through gauze. Seconds later, another snow screen blocked it from view again, yet its brief visage was enough to lift their spirits. A night's reprieve from the snowstorm was like a gift from God. And this is before the story gets haunted.
Gets creepy.
Before all the bad stuff happens. This next one is from you. This is your pumpkin story we've been talking about. We've been editing it, so we haven't got to like the real gory bits. So I just picked one from one of the sections we already worked on. I'm just gonna read the whole part leading up to it, too, so it makes more sense. So this is some creepy twins are out in a pumpkin patch, causing mischief.
Yep.
Their names are Mike and Bryce.
Yes.
The twins. Just so if anybody named Mike or Bryce is listening, Spencer made some creepy twins named after you 2 folks. Mike's shoes squished as he walked, covered in pumpkin guts. Wet footprints followed in his wake. I got seeds in my shoes. Mike lifted and shook his foot. Mom's gonna kill me. It's what you get for being stupid. You should have used a weapon like me, Bryce gloated, holding up his stick. The tip darkened from the pumpkin slurry. That's a good fucking word. Slurry. Well, it looks like you missed one, Mike pointed to a nearby fence. A jack-o'-lantern sat on top of one of the posts. The pumpkin had a jagged scowl and sad eyes carved into it. For some unknown reason, the bizarre jack-o'-lantern amused Bryce. A grin stretched from ear to ear as he walked towards his next victim. Picking up the helpless fruit, Bryce walked back to Mike and laid the jack-o'-lantern in the pulpy massacre of its brethren. Bryce raised his stick above his head but hesitated. On second thought, he lowered the weapon and handed it to his brother. I also like the pulpy massacre of his brethren. That was good. And then they do some smashing.
Yep.
And I got 2. I'm gonna read. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do it, but I'm gonna read a quote from my boxing story after this one. This is back to the Peddler song. This is 2 characters walking into what they think is a village, but it's actually kind of like walking into the past, like a ghost village, maybe. Ooh. In the Appalachian Mountains.
You just want me to do that as you're reading? Just
I'd prefer not. I'll put it in post. When they passed the sign into the village, the fog absorbed them as a snow mound would a falling flake. Around the perimeter, an inconceivable ripple sent the trees trembling as if viewed in the reflection of a rock-stricken lake. When the ripple stopped rippling, the howling tapered off and the chestnuts turned to ash. Outside the village, Uriah Falls vanished, only leaving behind a grove of adolescent pine trees. Inside the fog, the brothers walked through the spirit of an older order, a cold, colorless world that moved as dreams move, with illusory shapes drifting by the peripheral, with log cabin buildings that only existed when viewed directly, with eldritch susurrations ushering in the hour of vespers. They'd entered a world in perpetual twilight, untouched by the sun in a never-dissipating fog. Did I guess we'll end it on this. So this will be a small excerpt from my story, Giant Steps. It's going to be in Starlight Pulp. It's kind of hard to pick one from this just because it's more of a fast-paced boxing story. But I do have a scene after he gets knocked out in the ring.
Okay.
And it goes into some different stuff. So I'll just read that scene. Luckily, I broke them all up into scenes because it's written to the tune of John Coltrane's album Giant Steps. So each scene has a song title, and you can play the song title to set the mood for the scene. If you want to, you don't have to. All right, so I'll just because I want to be able to say a slur on here because it's not a slur in this context. I never get to say slurs too often.
I mean, yeah, because it's a slur.
Yeah. So this is the end of the previous scene, and it goes into the next scene. Beckett threw another feint. This one mimed a third jab. If Kowalski hadn't been stumbling down Queer Street, that's a slur because in boxing, Queer Street just means you got knocked around. Yeah. And this is set in the 70-ish era, but you can't say that anymore. If Kowalski hadn't been stumbling down Queer Street, he would have seen right through it, but he didn't see through it and instead brought his glove up to defend, leaving one side of his face open. He also didn't see the absolute bomb of a right cross that detonated on his chin. The bell sounded as Kowalski kissed the canvas. Then the next scene is called Spiral, which is John Coltrane's song Spiral, which it fits perfectly with this. So this is basically him kind of unconscious, you know, that knockout state you get in where you're trying to regain consciousness. I already told you, Kane, it's over. I'm with Jimmy now. I'm done fighting about this. You can still see Rosie on the weekends, but you can't come around here no more. If you don't stop, I'll take your ass back to court. And I promise you, if that happens, you won't see me or Rosie ever again. Come on, Kane, I'm trying to do the right thing here by letting you see your little girl, but you're being a real bastard about all this. You weren't ever around. Did you really think I was just going to wait forever while you trained and drove all over God knows where for fights? Look, don't think of me as your ex right now. Think of me as a friend. As a friend, I'm telling you, quit. It's time to move on from the fight game. You ain't getting no younger and you're barely making a living anymore. Please, for Rosie's sake, hang 'em up, Kane. Do something else with your life. Her voice faded into blackness. Thump, thump, thump. A full moon rose through the mirage of memory. Its pale light washed over a dilapidated structure set amongst an overgrown field. Kowalski entered knowing what he would find. His heart pounded against the inside of his rib cage. Thump, thump, thump. A cold wind swept through the barn. Kowalski stared up at the rope hanging from the rafters. A rickety wooden ladder led the way to the noose. He placed his foot on the first rung and stepped up. All he had to do was climb. Thump, thump, thump. What are you doing? Stay down, stay down. Reality roared back with the whoosh of hot air. The audience was in a craze. Kowalski's coach was pounding his fist against the ring canvas from outside. Thump, thump, thump. Somehow, without realizing it, the concussed King Kowalski had gotten to his feet. Took every bit of strength to show the ref that he was capable of continuing the bout. He didn't even know the round had ended. So there's lots of knocking out.
Yes.
Lots of punching. But that's a pulp language.
Yeah.
For those who are interested in pulp, maybe we did an episode on how to write pulp, kind of. But maybe we'll do another episode of just what actually entails writing pulp and like the language used and whatnot. But anyway, if you like that episode, you can follow us at DPW Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Which I just saw today. Elon Musk sold Twitter.
Yeah, to himself. Yeah.
Because that makes sense. Then you can follow Spencer's OnlyFans. He is, where are you at? Not Montana. Oxnard.
Yeah.
You are opening ovaries in Oxnard. Yuck. You could do that on his OnlyFans on your own dime. I'm not funding that. Then you can check out my work at calebjamesk.com and see my publication history. It's growing. I need to update it because I didn't put the Wicked Shadow Press on there yet. But you can do that, and yeah. Anyway, we'll check you out next time. That's all we got.
Yep.
That's all we got. Shit list. I didn't like that list. I didn't think most of it was that good. Not fitting to what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So maybe we'll revisit sometime. Maybe we'll do the most poetic one. That might have been better. Anyway, thank you for listening. We'll check you out next week.